Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate the opportunity to be a member of this committee. This is my first hearing with the committee. I think this is a potential committee, a potential forum where we can come together and, as Mr. Schweikert said, have intellectual, real discussions about both the state of the economy and steps that we can take to improve the economy, to ensure that all Americans can live their own American dream. It's one of the reasons I ran for Congress, is to ensure that we put policies in place to lift people out of poverty and ensure that they can do well in this great country of ours. I hope that's what this committee is. And so I was disappointed, Mr. Chairman, when I saw the title of the first hearing, How a U.S. Default Crisis Harms. And then after hearing some of the opening comments, it's clear this is an attempt to smear Republicans with some, what's the word I just heard, brinkmanship that would lead us to a default. There is no argument on my side that there should be default, or at least in my point. It would be terrible for the future of the country. It would be terrible for American citizens. And so then you say, well, we should just do a clean debt ceiling. But I want to remind folks, that's a hollow argument, because in 7 of the last 10 debt ceiling increases, there were changes, there were budget reforms made. 13 times since 1985 that happened. That's the norm, not the exception. And I also want to remind folks that the only group, the only party in this discussion that has done anything to raise the debt ceiling has been the House, where we have a bill in the Senate now that could be advanced, that would raise the debt ceiling, could be signed by the president today within the next hour if they chose to do so. If you don't like the provisions of the bill, then tell us what you do like. And that's what we've been asking the president to do for the last months. And after he said he won't negotiate, now negotiations are taking place, as they should be, and as is the norm. You know, I serve on the Budget Committee as well, serve on Ways and Means Committee, and am focused on trying to correct the trajectory that we're on. I was encouraged when we quickly got to a discussion in this hearing today about that trajectory and the impact that will have if we don't change it. Because today, we are at the highest level debt to compared to GDP than since World War II, when we had ramped up after a national crisis. And we're in an uncertain world right now and in a bad position to be able to take on any crisis that may come along. Projected to grow to double GDP in the next 30 years. I'd like a hearing, Mr. Chairman, on what that means for the American people, on what that means for people in poverty and people in the middle class if we don't change the trajectory. You know, a sovereign debt crisis will occur when our creditors no longer believe in the faith or the ability of the U.S. government to make good on its debt, or when they believe policymakers cannot take the actions necessary. And that's why the work of this committee is so important. At least the Limit, Save, Grow Act begins to change that trajectory. I want to show a chart here. It just starts to change the trajectory. It would start to build confidence in our creditors that we can move in the right direction. It's just a start. It's just a start, but we have to get started. So let's come together on this. We're going to raise the debt ceiling. We need to, but it's an inflection point when we should be talking about putting the country on the right path. Mr. Mulvaney, I appreciate your perspective. The House passed the debt ceiling increase in April. When did the Senate vote to raise the debt ceiling?
This afternoon. No, I'm joking, of course. They haven't voted yet.
And Mr. Mulvaney,
and I think they haven't voted because they know they can't pass it.
Would you talk about the trajectory we're on and the dangers to the country going forward if we don't take this opportunity to begin to change that?
The bottom line in 23 seconds or worse or less, inflation. That's it. That's what you're looking at, right? Is because the only way you're going to be able to function is to print the money. Whether or not you create it down at the Fed and they put it on a computer screen or actually run the machines, it doesn't make any difference. this is going to be inflationary. That's what you are looking at, not only this year, but for the next 30, 50 years. That's the only way this gets solved. And that is not much of a solution.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.